Ozempic, Wegovy, Semaglutide, GLP-1 receptor agonists, whatever you call them, they are the biggest pharmaceutical story in a generation. If you value an honest, data-driven approach to health, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep building these deep dives together. Now, let's look at the numbers. Nearly 15 million Americans are now on these drugs, billions of dollars in annual revenue, and the results for weight loss are genuinely significant. I'm not here to dismiss that, but I'm also 5 years into a dietary approach that produces many of the same metabolic outcomes through completely different mechanisms. For the price of food, I'd be buying anyway. So today, we're doing the comparison the internet hasn't done. Honestly, not advocacy, not dismissal, just data. Let me be clear about what I'm not doing in this video. I'm not telling you Ozempic is dangerous. I'm not telling you carnivore is for everyone. I'm not selling you a protocol. What I am doing is laying out the mechanisms, the clinical data, and the real-world trade-offs so that you can make an informed decision, or at least have a more informed conversation with your doctor. 5 years of personal data gives me one useful perspective. The published science gives me the framework. Let's use both. Ozempic works by mimicking a hormone your gut naturally produces called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. GLP-1 is released after eating. It tells your pancreas to produce insulin, tells your stomach to slow down emptying, and, critically, signals your brain that you're full. Ozempic is a synthetic GLP-1 receptor agonist. It delivers a sustained, powerful version of this satiety signal. The result is dramatically reduced appetite, lower caloric intake, and significant weight loss. That mechanism is real, well-studied, and clinically validated. There's no mystery to why it works. Now here's what's fascinating. Your gut naturally produces GLP-1 after eating, and the research on high-protein, high-fat meals shows they stimulate greater GLP-1 release than high-carbohydrate meals. In other words, a ribeye steak triggers more natural GLP-1 than a bowl of pasta. On top of that, ketosis, which carnivore reliably produces, elevates circulating ketone bodies that themselves reduce appetite through a separate pathway involving ghrelin suppression. Carnivore doesn't mimic the mechanism of Ozempic, but it appears to activate many of the same pathways through entirely natural means. This doesn't make carnivore equivalent to Ozempic. The pharmaceutical version delivers a much stronger, more sustained signal than food, but it does mean that when people say carnivore is nature's Ozempic, there is actual biochemical logic behind that claim. Not marketing, biology. Let's look at the clinical numbers. In the SUSTAIN and STEP trials, the largest Ozempic and Wegovy clinical studies, participants lost an average of 12 to 15% of body weight over 68 weeks. In the highest dose Wegovy trial, some participants lost over 20%. These are the results that made the pharmaceutical world take notice. They're real, they're meaningful, and they represent a genuine advance for people with severe metabolic disease and obesity. Now the carnivore data, the Lenners survey, the best available data set on long-term carnivore, showed average BMI dropping from 27.2 to 24.3. That's a reduction of approximately 11% in a 14-month time frame in people who were mostly in the overweight range to begin with, not the severely obese range where Ozempic's most dramatic results occur. If we're comparing apples to apples, overweight individuals, similar time frames, the carnivore results are remarkably competitive with pharmaceutical intervention. Honest caveat, the Lenners data is self-reported from a self-selected group of successful carnivore dieters. It doesn't include people who tried carnivore and quit. The Ozempic data is from randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of medical research. The quality of evidence is not equivalent, but the directionality of results is remarkably similar, and one of them is free. Ozempic's trade-offs are real and worth knowing. Nausea affects 20 to 44% of users. It's the most common side effect. More significantly, studies show that weight lost on Ozempic includes a meaningful proportion of muscle mass, not just fat. In a 2023 trial, approximately 1/3 of total weight loss was lean mass, not fat. When patients stop taking the drug, which many eventually do, the majority regain the weight. Ozempic treats the symptom. It doesn't change the underlying metabolic relationship with food. Carnivore's trade-offs are also real. The adaptation period, what some call the carnivore flu, involves fatigue, headaches, and digestive disruption for days to weeks. Social and practical complexity is significant. Eating out, travel, and social events require active management. LDL cholesterol rises for most people, which requires monitoring even if, as we covered in our cholesterol video, the full picture is more nuanced than that number alone suggests. And for some people, it simply doesn't work. Not every gut responds the same way. Not every person has the constitution for a restrictive elimination diet. On cost, Ozempic averages between $800 and $1,200 per month in the United States without insurance coverage. High-quality carnivore, grass-fed beef, organ meats, eggs, runs roughly $400 to $600 per month, less than half the cost. And unlike a medication, that food budget replaces your entire grocery spend, not supplements it. The economic argument for carnivore is significant for anyone without insurance coverage for GLP-1 drugs. Here's my honest framework for thinking about this. Ozempic is appropriate and potentially life-changing for people with severe obesity, type 2 diabetes, significant metabolic disease, or who have genuinely exhausted dietary approaches without success. Carnivore is appropriate for people who are metabolically curious, willing to commit to a significant dietary change, don't have the financial or insurance access for pharmaceutical intervention, or who want to address the root cause of their metabolic state. And here's a thought that rarely gets discussed. For some people, the two aren't mutually exclusive, using the drug as a bridge to rewire eating behavior, not as a permanent solution. That combination approach is underexplored and possibly the most practical option. My personal take, I chose carnivore 5 years ago, and I've never had reason to revisit that choice. Health decisions are personal. What I do have judgment for is the absence of honest information, and I hope this series helped with that. Drop your experience below. Ozempic, carnivore, or both. Every perspective belongs here. Subscribe for the next series, The Advanced Carnivore Protocol, and thank you for building this with me. See you on the next one, Carnivore Family.